Have you ever looked closely at that jar of strawberry preserves sitting on your breakfast table and wondered why it tastes more like straight chemical syrup than actual fruit? What if I told you that the jam you spread on your toast every single morning has probably never been in the same room as a whole, fresh strawberry? I know that sounds like a wild exaggeration to get your attention, but it is not. The entire preserves industry, the jams, the jellies, the fruit spreads you have been blindly buying from grocery shelves for decades, is actually one of the most quietly effective, perfectly legal deceptions running rampant in your local supermarket. Americans burn through roughly $2 billion a year in this specific category, and the absolute kicker is that the majority of your hard-earned money is not buying fruit at all. You are paying premium prices for high fructose corn syrup, cheap industrial pectin, and a slick label design featuring sun-drenched orchards. Let us be completely honest here. That beautiful, rustic orchard on the packaging is just a corporate logo, not a sourcing decision. But don't throw your toast out the window just yet. By the time we get to the end of this video, I am going to give you the names of 3 specific brands that actually do it right. And you might be shocked to learn that one of them is actually cheaper than most of the industrial garbage on our skip list. Today, we are going to completely break down the legal loopholes big food companies use to trick you. We will expose the household name brands that are selling you glorified corn syrup under the guise of health. And I will show you the exact laboratory data and class action lawsuits that prove how we are all being played. Make sure you stick around until the very end, because the most trusted, most iconic childhood brand on this list turns out to be the absolute worst offender of them all. To understand how we got here, we need to look at the basic anatomy of a jar of jam, because the math explains the entire deception. To manufacture just one single jar of genuine high-quality strawberry preserves, a company needs close to 1 full pound of whole, fresh strawberries. Now think about the logistics of that. Strawberries are highly seasonal, they bruise incredibly easily during transit, and they lose a massive amount of physical volume the second you break them down for processing. That creates an incredibly volatile, wildly expensive supply chain to manage at a massive corporate scale. High fructose corn syrup, on the other hand, costs a tiny fraction of that price. It is completely shelf-stable, heavily subsidized by the government, and entirely consistent from batch to batch. So, the corporate accounting department made a very simple calculation. Use just enough real fruit to stay technically within the law, and fill the rest of the jar with cheap, corn-derived industrial sweetener. This isn't a culinary decision. It is a cold, calculated accounting strategy designed to maximize profit margins while feeding you trash. The only reason they get away with this is because of the deeply flawed legal architecture written into federal law. If you look at FDA Regulation 21 CFR Part 150.160, it technically requires that a product labeled as a preserve must contain 45 parts fruit by weight for every 55 parts of sugar. On paper, that sounds like a meaningful safety net for the consumer, right? Well, you have to read the fine print. The regulation explicitly permits what the industry calls concentrated fruit to count toward that fruit quota. Concentrated fruit is just a fancy, marketing-friendly term for a water-stripped, ultra-processed industrial syrup. From a nutritional and structural standpoint, that processed syrup is just pure liquid sugar, but on the legal checklist, it counts exactly the same as a whole, fresh strawberry straight from the field. The federal regulation cannot tell the difference, and neither can the label on the front of the jar. That is loophole number 1, and the industry rides it all the way to the bank. Let us dive straight into the skip list, starting with great value strawberry preserves, which you will find sitting prominently on the shelves of every Walmart across America. Now, great value does not pretend to be an artisanal luxury product. It is unashamedly a budget option, but its transparency is exactly what reveals the absolute rock bottom of this entire product category. Flip this heavy glass jar around and look at the ingredient list. You will find strawberries listed first, followed immediately by high fructose corn syrup, regular corn syrup, fruit pectin, and citric acid. Notice what is missing entirely? There is zero traditional cane sugar here. Instead, Walmart is using two separate, highly processed industrial corn sweeteners back to bulk out the weight and mask the total lack of real fruit depth. What makes this even more insidious is the environmental and agricultural reality of those ingredients. Both of these heavy sweeteners are derived from genetically modified crops. Considering that over 90% of all corn acreage cultivated in the United States is entirely GMO, when you spread this on a piece of toast, the sensory experience completely gives the game away. It does not taste like real, tart, vibrant summer fruit. It hits your palate with a flat, intensely cloying, metallic sweetness that burns the back of your throat. The texture isn't formed by the natural breakdown of fruit fibers, but rather by a thick, gelatinous blob of industrial pectin holding the corn syrup together. The front label boldly screams the phrase "made with real fruit," which is a masterpiece of legal phrasing. Technically, yes, the strawberries are the first ingredient by weight, but what that flashy label completely hides is that the second and third ingredients are both massive doses of cheap corn derivatives. The fruit might be present in the building, but it is absolutely not the one running the show. You are effectively paying a couple of vorts for a jar of sweet industrial gel, making it a complete scam when compared to buying actual whole fruit. It is functionally a bottle of modified corn syrup with a red tint. If you think stepping up a tier in price protects you from these corporate shortcuts, let us talk about Polaner Strawberry Preserves, a staple brand that you will find in almost any regional supermarket like Kroger, Safeway, or Publix. Polaner occupies a very clever psychological space in the grocery aisle because it heavily benefits from its close association with its much more famous all-fruit product line. Most consumers who are rushing through the grocery store's aisles automatically trust the Polaner logo, reaching for the standard preserves line without ever slowing down to realize they are buying a completely different, lower quality formula. If you slow down and flip the regular Polaner preserves jar around, you are hit with a harsh reality check. Strawberries, high fructose syrup, corn syrup, water, pectin, sugar, and citric acid. Look at that structural architecture. It is completely identical to the ultra-budget Walmart formula. Even if you try to escape this by paying a premium for the celebrated Polaner all-fruit line, the deception simply evolves. Turn that expensive jar around and look at ingredient number 1. It is not the fruit named on the front, but rather juice concentrates derived from pears, grapes, and pineapples. The brand uses these cheap, highly concentrated, water-stripped fruit juices as a legal sweetener filler long before the actual headline fruit even makes an appearance on the list. The brand name implies a pure, single-source fruit experience, but the actual reality inside the jar delivers an entirely different, heavily blended outcome. The ingredient list tells the unvarnished truth, while the brand name is just expensive marketing designed to soothe your conscience at the checkout counter. If you feel like checking your own pantry right now to see if you have been fooled by these corporate tricks, hit that subscribe button immediately, because the deeper we dig into these mega corporations, the uglier the truth becomes. Let us cross over into an even bigger household name, Welch's Concord Grape Jelly. This brand is a monumental piece of American history, built on a highly respected cooperative model of local family farms that stretches all the way back to 1917, when the United States Army bought out the company's entire production run to fuel soldiers overseas. That deep heritage is entirely real, and it is exactly why millions of parents completely trust this jar with the bright purple label to feed their kids. But if you flip that iconic jar around today, you will see how far corporate optimization has strayed from historical heritage. The ingredients read Concord grapes, corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, citric acid, and sodium citrate. Just like the others, the original sugar-only formula was quietly abandoned decades ago as a ruthless, cost-cutting measure when the brand scaled up to meet massive national distribution demand. This structural shift toward heavily fortified, ultra-processed formulas even landed the cooperative in a massive class action lawsuit in a New York federal court, where legal complaints thoroughly documented how their fruit-based snacks and spreads were functionally no more healthful than a standard bag of candy, relying heavily on corn syrup and modified cornstarch while using added vitamins to artificially create a health halo. When you spread this jelly, it behaves exactly like a factory product. It has a stiff, jiggly, rubbery texture that bounces off the spoon and tastes like artificial grape flavoring mixed with pure liquid sugar. The beautiful story of local family farms is a genuine piece of American history, but the actual ingredient list inside the jar is a product of modern corporate engineering, and the two simply do not align. Now we enter the territory of the premium sub-brands, starting with Smucker's Orchard's Finest. This line is a masterclass in modern retail manipulation. Smucker's realized that consumers were getting smarter and starting to avoid traditional jars, so they created Orchard's Finest. It features entirely different, rustic packaging, a significantly higher price point, and a design intentionally crafted to signal small batch, artisan sourcing. It is physically placed 2 shelves higher than the standard line to make you think you are buying something special. Flip that beautiful premium jar around and read the fine print. Apricots or strawberries, high fructose corn syrup, fruit pectin, and citric acid. The formula is not just similar to the cheap standard Smucker's line. It is completely identical. The recipe did not change a single percentage point. The only things that changed were the glass mold, the paper label, and the addition of the word finest. In the world of food labeling, finest is a completely empty marketing descriptor. There is absolutely no official FDA standard or chemical threshold a product must pass to use that word. It means whatever the corporate marketing department wants it to mean, while the fixed ingredient list on the back remains unchanged. You are paying a heavy financial premium for a piece of paper, not a premium recipe. Finally, we arrive at the absolute pinnacle of this structural deception: Smucker's Simply Fruit. This is arguably the most deliberately, meticulously constructed product on the entire grocery shelf. It is explicitly marketed to health-conscious parents as the clean, pristine alternative within the massive Smucker's empire, and it commands a steep premium price. The very name Simply Fruit strongly implies that the contents are entirely made of the headline fruit. But flip the jar and read the raw data. Ingredient number 1 is fruit syrup, which is a corporate euphemism for a blend of highly processed apple and pineapple juice concentrates. The actual headline fruit, the strawberry, is relegated to ingredient number 2, a landmark investigation conducted by the Center for Science in the Public Interest using international packaging where strict percentage disclosure is mandated by law, exposed that this exact product contained a mere 30% actual strawberries, while a staggering 69% of the jar was just cheap apple and pineapple syrup. Because 30% real strawberry is nowhere near enough to actually make a product taste like strawberries, the company has to add natural flavor to chemically simulate the taste of real food. At the time of the consumer protection petitions, Simply Fruit costs significantly more per ounce than regular Smucker's preserves. meaning the premium product actually contained less of the real headline fruit while charging consumers a massive premium. It is a logistical magic trick performed right on your breakfast table, transforming cheap, generic industrial fruit syrup into a premium product through pure marketing willpower. It is a total illusion. And now, what it was worth watching all the way through for. Let us completely flip the script and talk about the rewards of knowing how to read past the corporate marketing. We are moving away from the industrial corn syrup farms and stepping into the territory of actual real food that belongs on your table. These are the brands that do not rely on legal loopholes or clever wordplay on the front of the packaging because their ingredient lists on the back do all the talking. We will start with the most accessible mainstream champion of the group, which you can easily find at major supermarkets like Kroger, Publix, and safely stocked on Amazon. Crofter's Organic Fruit Spread. This brand is an absolute consumer win when it comes to balancing pure ingredient integrity with everyday wallet reality. Flip a jar of Crofter's Premium spread around, and you are hit with a breath of fresh air. Ingredient number 1 is certified organic strawberries. The full list is incredibly brief. Organic strawberries, organic cane sugar, pectin solution, ascorbic acid, and citric acid. That is 5 total ingredients, all completely recognizable. Founded in 1991 by Gerhard and Gabby Latka, the brand started pushing for organic fruit purity long before official organic certifications were even standardized or heavily regulated by supermarkets. Today, their production keeps that exact same foundational philosophy alive. Structurally, Crofter's contains roughly 33% less sugar than conventional commercial jams because they refuse to use sugar as a heavy, cheap bulking agent. Instead, they source heritage strawberry varieties like Camarosa and Sanga Sangana, which are deep red cultivars known for their intense, naturally robust flavor profiles. Because the real fruit actually does its job, the company does not need to inject secret natural flavor additives to trick your tongue. When you spread this on your toast, the texture is a complete revelation compared to the industrial blocks of gelatin we talked about earlier. It looks like crushed, real fruit, feels completely natural on the palate, and hits you with the bright, sharp tartness of an actual strawberry rather than a blast of metallic sweetness. At roughly $5 to $6 for a generous 16-ounce jar, it actively competes with the artificial premium lines of the major conglomerates, giving you double the quality without draining your grocery budget. Next up is a brand that has maintained an ironclad, legendary reputation among clean-eating advocates for over 40 years, St. Dalfor. You can pick this up at Whole Foods, Sprouts, Target, or your local regional grocer. St. Dalfor is a masterclass in clean formulation because they have never used cane sugar, corn syrup, or artificial preservatives in their entire production history. Flip the iconic tall glass jar around and look at the math. Strawberries, fruit juice concentrates derived from grapes and dates, fruit pectin, and lemon juice. That is 4 total ingredients. The sweetener they use is grape must, which is the naturally sweet, unrefined liquid byproduct of the traditional winemaking process. The brand's entire philosophy actually predates its modern corporate founding in 1984, tracing its roots back to World War I culinary traditions in France, when local families facing severe wartime sugar shortages resorted to preserving their backyard fruit crops using concentrated grape juice instead. That historical necessity evolved into a strict production standard that still guides their small batch, kettle cooked methods today. Because they completely omit refined granulated sugars and industrial syrups, the spread has a remarkably elegant, sophisticated flavor profile. It doesn't hit your tongue with a blunt instrument of sweetness. Instead, it allows the natural, earthy, authentic sugars of the fruit to slowly bloom on your palate. The downside? Because it is a completely natural product without heavy chemical stabilization. It is noticeably thinner and less gelatinous than commercial jelly, and it retails at around $5 to $7 for a smaller 10-ounce jar. It is undeniably a premium price point per ounce, but when you break down the cost per serving, you are paying for actual agricultural density rather than water mixed with subsidized Midwest corn. Finally, we reach the absolute peak of premium domestic quality, a brand you can find at high-end grocers, specialty food shops, and nationwide staples like Whole Foods and Fresh Market Stonewall Kitchen. This brand represents the absolute pinnacle of small batch quality control in the United States. Look at the back of their flagship strawberry jam. Strawberries, pure cane sugar, fruit pectin, lemon juice, and citric acid. Try to point to a single item on that list that you wouldn't find inside a traditional home kitchen cupboard. You absolutely cannot. Fruit is the undisputed #1 ingredient, and pure cane sugar takes the #2 spot. No corn syrup, no hidden high fructose substitutes, and no deceptive generic fruit syrups. Jonathan King and Jim Stott founded this company in 1991. Starting out with nothing more than a simple folding table at a local farmer's market in York, Maine. The iconic rustic handwriting you see printed on every single Stonewall Kitchen label to this very day is a direct digital replica of Jonathan's actual handwriting from those early days, back when they had to handwrite every single label because they couldn't afford a commercial printing press. Every single incoming shipment of fresh fruit is meticulously sampled and tested for sugar density, and every finished batch is monitored by real human eyes rather than fully automated factory sensors. The sensory experience here is unmatched. It is packed with massive whole chunks of real jammy fruit and tiny crunchable strawberry seeds that offer an unmistakable homemade texture. Now, let us be completely honest about the drawback. At $7 to $9 for a 12-ounce jar, this is a luxury purchase for a breakfast table. It is expensive, and it knows it. But that steep markup isn't going into a multi-million-dollar television ad campaign. It is directly paying for real quality control, premium sourcing, and a refusal to take industrial shortcuts. This is the ideal option if you want zero compromise on taste and want to support a genuine American success story that refused to sell its soul to a corporate food conglomerate. Now that you know exactly which corporate giants are cutting corners and which brands are actually respecting your health, let us arm you with the ultimate retail shield. The next time you walk into a Walmart, Target, Kroger, or Whole Foods, you do not need to rely on memorized lists because you can run any jar through a rapid, bulletproof label audit yourself. Here are the 5 non-negotiable rules for buying real fruit preserves. Rule number 1. Apply the 3-ingredient gatekeeper test. Pick up the jar, look directly at the first 3 items on the ingredient panel, and if anything other than the named headline fruit, pure cane sugar, or fruit pectin occupies those top slots, immediately put the jar back on the shelf. Rule number 2, treat high fructose corn syrup and regular corn syrup as immediate red flags. If either of these cheap, heavily processed corn derivatives appears anywhere on the label, you are looking at a hypersweet industrial gel engineered by a corporate accounting department to mimic food, not actual fruit. Rule number 3, learn to decode the phrase fruit syrup or juice concentrate when it sits at the very top of the list. This is a highly calculated legal loophole used by brands to artificially inflate their total fruit percentage on paper by dumping in cheap, water-stripped, generic apple, pear, or pineapple syrup instead of using the actual strawberries or raspberries featured on the front illustration. Rule number 4. Completely ignore front-of-label marketing vocabulary like finest, premium, or artisan. The FDA has 0 legal or chemical standards tied to these descriptive words, meaning a multi-billion-dollar food conglomerate can slap the word finest onto the exact same cheap, corn-heavy formula as their budget line without changing a single drop of the recipe, forcing you to pay a premium for a piece of paper. Rule number 5. Understand the hidden legal trap of the phrase fruit spread. If a jar is labeled as a fruit spread rather than a preserve or a jam, it completely escapes the federal mandate requiring a minimum of 45% fruit content by weight, meaning the manufacturer has total legal freedom to lower the real fruit content as much as they want while filling the rest with water, thickeners, and lab-made flavor enhancers to bring everything we have unpacked today into a singular sharp focus. Remember this fundamental reality: the modern commercial food industry is not built to nourish you. It is built to optimize manufacturing costs and maximize quarterly corporate profits. By constructing a clever, multi-layered legal architecture through loose federal regulations, massive food conglomerates have successfully turned your breakfast table into an optimized cost efficiency problem, shifting from whole fruits to subsidized corn sweeteners while using nostalgic packaging to soothe your consumer suspicions. But you do not have to be a passive victim of their marketing tricks anymore. You can instantly take control of what goes into your body simply by choosing to read the back of the jar instead of trusting the front. Thank you so much for hanging out and digging into the truth with me today. If you have a friend or a family member who is constantly buying those classic childhood brands for their kids, thinking it is just pure, wholesome fruit, please share this video with them right now. They deserve to know exactly what they are paying for at the checkout counter. I want to hear from you down in the comments. Which of these exact brands is sitting inside your kitchen pantry right now? And did any of these ingredient lists genuinely catch you off guard? Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we are currently deep diving into the dark secrets of the commercial peanut butter industry for our next major expose, and you absolutely do not want to miss it. Stop letting multi-billion-dollar marketing departments dictate what you eat. Keep demanding the unvarnished truth, and I will see you in the very next video.